Hello everyone, welcome to There's a VIP in my shed. At last we're back in again. It's been a funny few months. I said that on the last podcast actually, that's been a funny few months. And it has, it's continuing to be a funny few months where my time is incredibly stretched but and spread like thin butter on crusty toast. So anyway, we're here, we're in the shed, and I am joined my VIP today, my very important person.
Vaguely important.
It's vaguely important. I would say you're pretty important. As none other than Chris Owen. He goes by the name also as Blue. What would you like to be called for this morning?
Blue, yeah.
Blue, fine. And so Blue and I got talking. When was it? Over the summer?
Yeah.
Something like that. You initially wanted to have a chat about the rainbow movement, would you say?
Yeah, it's been
a
major influence in my life. Yeah. So the strapline was, I gave it all up to have everything.
That's the one, yeah. But since then, you've joined the council, would you say?
Town council, yeah. I'm now Councillor Blue.
Yeah. Sorry?
Councillor Blue.
Councillor Blue. So I think that's going to be an interesting thing to talk about as well.
Or Councillor Chris Owen, depending on...
Well, exactly. I can't imagine the rest of your councillor cohort call you Blue.
They do, actually.
Do they?
I think they quite like it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I think Llandrod's... I don't know if it's unusual, but I think it's cool that they've sort of... they've taken... how can I say this without being rude? They've got away from the stereotype, haven't they? By sort of adopting you into their circle.
I've always loved the expression Llandrindod, the land of the odd. And
I've not heard that, but I like it.
To anybody, but
yeah.
I love Llandrindod because it's such a melting pot. It is such a middle ground.
Mm-hmm. We
spent a long time as a family travelling, lived in all sorts of places all over the UK, well, southeast of England, Cornwall, Devon, West Wales, Councillor. Eventually, we kind of spiralled round and found this as our resting place. I just find it's such a lovely middle ground between the madness and the busyness of the southeast where I came from, grew up around Guildford and London, and then the wild west of West Wales, and where there were too many people in the southeast and there was too few in the west. And here is just a really nice balance, lots of different people. It's a very metropolitan town, people from all over the world because of its sort of leisure tourism industry. It's a big foundation of the business here. Yeah, just love it. It's not too busy. It's not too boring.
So do you think?
It's really interesting people.
I think Llandrindod is pretty unique in this locale. Like compared to Built or Radar, it's the most sort of cosmopolitan, if you want to call it that.
It's metropolitan.
Cosmopolitan. What do you want to call it? Metropolitan. Whatever the word is, different, isn't it? It's like a melting pot of different cultures in this place, compared to the other places around. But I wonder whether that's just us looking, and so we say it's the land of the odd. But is that in comparison to just the stuff around us, and actually is it pretty normal or not that odd compared to other places in the UK?
I think it's a pretty special place.
Right.
Yeah. I feel very welcomed here. I felt a lot of prejudice back in Guildford where I grew up. I was always quite scruffy. Was into a bit of a grunger, bit of a hippie, and I just often found prejudice. And I'd say hello to people. I was brought up to say hello to people as I walked down the street, and quite often I'd get people looking at me worried and crossing the road, and it's like, well, I'm just being friendly. People were like heads down in that part of the world. It's too much going on, too busy, and there's a serious lack of community feel. Like money divides people. Like, I grew up in a very affluent area, and I noticed early on that the more wealth people had, the more isolated they seemed. The bigger their gardens, the higher their fences, the stronger their locks.
They have more to be afraid of, don't they?
Yeah, more to protect, and so much of the focus is on the money to rely on everything you need, rather than like here, people help each other out. It's a community feel. There's more bartering. There's people are more welcoming, more ready to make friends, to let other people into their lives. And as I said, I love it here. I love Llandrindod. Yeah, it's a great place. Yeah, and I'm proud to be on the council to help.
Well, it's
my town.
The proof is in the pudding, isn't it? I saw a headline saying it's the 4th happiest place to live in Wales.
It was the first for ages.
It was the first,
twice.
yeah. We've dropped down a ranking or
man.
two, unfortunately, and it was in the top 10 for the UK as well at one point.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I think to be in the top 5 for Wales is a good thing, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And I would echo your sentiments. I think it's a very welcoming place. There's a big sense of community here. People sort of looking out for each other.
And of all sorts as well.
Mm-hmm.
You get all types of different people here, all getting on.
Yeah.
Which is a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah. So can't fault it in that respect.
Mm.
So so you were from Guildford originally.
Yeah.
And then
Guildford, sorry.
Yeah. And then so you travelled around a bit.
I did. So I worked in London for a while. From there, a lot of my friends moved up to London to work. I found a job as a data analyst. And I remember at the time thinking, right, if I want to affect change, I've always been sort of, I can see the problems in the world, I can see a way out of it, maybe, and yeah. So, sorry, just going back, like I remember going to Sunday school as a kid, and I think I was about 6 years old, and I went to my mum and dad and said, like, Mum, Dad, and me and my sister, I remember us both going up to them side by side and saying, do you mind if we don't go to Sunday school anymore? Mm-hmm. And I remember Mum going, oh, that's a relief, we were only taking you because, we felt it was the right thing to do. I was baptised as a Christian and everything. But the reason for it was because I said, I don't think they really understand what Jesus was on about.
Interesting.
They don't get it.
And
so it wasn't that I wasn't Christian or spiritual. I'd see myself as spiritual rather than religious. I see myself as cross religion, really. That all of the religions point to the same fundamental truths. A friend of mine did a really good talk about it and has written a book about, if you imagine a circle, and at the core of the circle are the truths, and then around the edge are all the different cultures of the world, all the different religions and all their different stories, and how they're all pointing to the same fundamental truths. It's one thing I do love about Christianity, that they kind of came with the message that we all have one God. It's one God, right? No matter what name you gave it. So yeah, I could see that people misunderstand these truths, and that we were going down some wrong paths.
Well, I think you get a lot of people who say they have a faith or a religion. Sorry, I'm stifling a sneeze. It always happens when I'm about to start talking. And you have a lot of people who say they've got a faith or a religion, but it's kind of like a lifestyle choice rather than an actual belief that they embody.
Sure.
And so they go to church on a Sunday because that's what they've always done.
They learn through the scriptures and study it rather than something that's coming.
There's an element of that, but also they don't read the scriptures, and so they don't understand it. They go along with their preconceived notion or the habit of what they think is right, the right way to act. And I think a lot of people in quite high up positions, they don't even believe what they are preaching. It's just a lifestyle for them. It's like a job, like any other job. And so for that reason, you would naturally feel that they aren't embodying what they are. They aren't practicing what they're preaching, basically. So I think that's a fair observation to have made, for sure. So it's a pity that you made. You were put into that position, because as you know, I go to church myself, so I can tell you that they're not all like that, and we do practice what we preach,
but since the inequality in the world, essentially, and seeing that why are people homeless? We live in such an incredible time where we have all this ability of technological advances. We're like at the pinnacle of our technological development in this age, anyway, because I do believe there have been civilizations in the past that have been high-tech civilizations that are lost and scrapped from the history records, but that sort of evidence is coming through more.
It's becoming more popular, isn't it, that line of thinking, that concept?
Looking at the pyramids, for example, how they were built, their incredible understanding of mathematics and the universe, or our solar system at least. Like, these people that built those obviously knew a great deal, probably more than we do now, because we couldn't build them. Teotihuacan and Angkor Wat and all these amazing places. Sorry, I lost it again now. So we've got all this capability, and so why do we have homelessness? Why are we in this position where it's always confused me, and so I've looked at the bare essentials of what we need, and I set up a community project. When I left my job in London, I had a spiritual awakening where it was through Buddhism, Buddhist meditations that I'd learnt while I was there. Went on a retreat and realised that the job I was doing as a data analyst for a big market research firm was actually only helping the very people that I was kind of against.
Right.
So, and I'd gone into London hoping that I'd be in the centre of London. If I was in London and I can affect change, like radical change for the good of the people, the good of our world, the best place to do it would be London, because if we can affect change there, then it'll filter out. But after a few years, I went on this retreat and I suddenly realised all I'm doing is helping myself to get rich, and a few executive companies that I didn't even agree with, like Sky Television. Sorry, people like Sky, but I think there's a lot of garbage on there, and it's not good for us. And there's a lot of waste of energy and waste of time and bad information. And what am I doing? Helping these very people to make more money. So I quit my job. I quit this most amazing job. It was so easy. I didn't have to get to work till 10. If I didn't have a lot of work on, I could literally just leave and go and sit in the park for a few hours or whatever. It was so easy. Had all the pension benefits. I could have stayed there for the rest of my career, really. But in my core, I knew at that point, after that awakening, that I couldn't stay there and I had to quit my job. And I asked my boss at the time, could I change my clients? Could I choose my clients, work for charities or something? And he went away and came back and said, oh, sorry, we can't do it. And so I left. And I went travelling for the first time. I've struggled. I've always wanted to travel. The reason that I worked in a pub at first and I learned how to play guitar was so that wherever I went in the world, I could find work and I wanted to travel. But it never quite happened. Something about me, I tend to get locked into responsibilities, like whether I'm in a band or in a football team or a relationship or whatever. I always found it difficult to break away. But I finally managed to do it. Got to Italy and went backpacking. Went to a reggae festival, 15-day reggae festival called Rotom, which is amazing, and met a couple of Italian lads there, one of which spoke really good English. And they were going to Rome to see their family. And it just so happened that a girl I was absolutely in love with at the time was there visiting her family. So I was like, okay, I'll stay in Italy. I'm going to shoot down and go and visit my friend. Met up with her, and her friend happened to be going to a rainbow gathering. And I'd heard about rainbow. I don't know if people know much about rainbow gatherings, but I'd heard about it along the grapevine. So this opportunity came up, and again I was off with a couple of random people that didn't really speak English. Again, one spoke a little bit of broken English, and I couldn't speak any Italian at the time. So I went with them to this gathering. So we were up in the mountains, a couple of hours outside of Rome. Long walks, about an hour's walk up into the forest up in the top of the mountains there. And the rainbow gathering is where you gather for a whole month from new moon to new moon, and you live around a fire. Everything's brought by hand. There was a vehicle that could come up that brought food supplies up, but generally everyone was discouraged from using that vehicle. You had to come by foot, only bring things you can carry on your own back. And you spend a whole month collecting firewood. They build a kitchen, they build all the things that we need with tarpaulins and ropes, and it's just very, very basic, very earthy. And I spent about 10 days living with these people. There was one Dutch guy that spoke English, the rest of them, and I spent quite a lot of time with him. It's like Indian Baba type guy. It was an interesting experience. And he wanted me to come back with him to Germany and live with him, but that's another story. And yeah, I remember when I was leaving, I hadn't been able to communicate with these people, like with words. But when I left, they were all shouting like, bye, lots of love, well, and see you in 5 minutes, whatever they were shouting in Italian. And I'm thinking, oh my God, my heart was breaking. It was like, I loved these people more. I had a closer connection with these people that I couldn't even communicate with in words than I did of any of my friends or family, like at home. A deeper spiritual sort of soul connection. Because I'd never had any arguments with them over anything. I'd shared food, I'd played music, I'd danced around the fire, been in nature with them. It really woke me up to like what it is that we need on a soul level to be happy. You know, that strong sense of community, like feeling immersed in nature and drinking fresh spring water out of the mountainside. And I think it was the most healthy 10 days of my life. Vegan food, I think it was all vegan, maybe vegetarian, certainly no meat there, I think. It's vegan so that everyone can eat. So anyone that turns up is able to eat the meal. It's totally inclusive. So yeah, when I came home, I looked for rainbow people, found them quite quickly, and that was the beginning of my new journey then, travelling with the Rainbow family in the UK, setting up gatherings here. That's where I met my wife. This is where I decided that I wanted to have children. So I never wanted kids. I was really quite I was really depressed through my teens, looking at the state of the world. Again, feeling like I'm trying to do my best, I'm trying to be friendly, I'm trying to be loving, yet there's all this prejudice against me. I'm constantly being attacked for the way that I feel about the world. You know, as a sort of socialist, lefty kind of growing up, I was constantly being argued against by my friends. You know? And it's a very conservative kind of area that I was growing up in, so I was like a fish out of water. And people were always trying to change my mind, and I was like, well, no, you can't argue against my beliefs, my opinions. It's not a factual thing that you can change in me. This is who I am. But I learnt to love these people. I love my friends down that way, and now I say I'm cross-party as a councillor. I'm a cross-party councillor, cross-religion councillor, because I've heard the Tory arguments. I grew up around it, and I know these people are lovely people, and they only want what's best for their people as well. We're all at our core just trying to do our best by our, you know, depending on the culture that we're brought up in and things like that. So I've got a lot of compassion for everyone. No matter what their beliefs. I feel like we can work together, and through our diversity is strength. You look at biodiversity in an ecosystem, the more biodiversity you have, the stronger the ecosystem, the more resilient. And at the moment we're in a really dangerous situation where we're becoming more and more polarised by going down into our echo chambers, by the fact that we're no longer got this unified message that used to come from the church or whatever, where everyone sort of believed the same thing, and in that respect there was this community cohesion. This is being broken apart now, and it's so important at this time that we really listen to each other, that we don't censor people. Freedom of speech, you know, it's a big hot topic in the States at the moment, and saying that actually this amendment of freedom of speech maybe should be removed because it's allowing hate speech to happen and things like that, and that's the beginning of the end.
It is, absolutely.
If we lose that, then there's the end of democracy. People need to be able to speak freely, and we all need to respect each other for our own individual beliefs. It's so key. So it's, you know, and I never thought I'd join the town council. I've always tried to set up alternatives because I realised that actually power corrupts, and hierarchies become tyrannies. That things all start off as a good thing, but they become co-opted. Where there's positions of power, you have psychopaths vying to get to that top spot, and the more power and the more money there is there, the more drive there is for the psychopaths to find that position. So over time, hierarchies all become tyrannies. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And we're at a point in human history now where the conglomerations of all this power coming together, and these global establishments like WEF and WHO and things, they have such power that they've actually, you know, they're no longer serving the purpose maybe that they were set up to initially. We need to bring power back down to more of a grassroots level again. I think that's a lot what Brexit was about. So Brexit, I never voted in the Brexit thing because I felt at the time, well, I don't know enough about it. Maybe it is a good idea that we leave. Maybe it is, and I don't know. But the way I felt about it was, after reflection, was that we all need more autonomy within our own lives and our local communities. It's been taken away from people. People don't feel, that they have enough say or any power in their local communities. Really, what's the point in getting involved with the council? Right. There's apathy, so we need more autonomy devolved to local people at grassroots level. At the same time, we really need global unity. We need to be united with all our brothers and sisters across the world. We are one global people. It's undeniable. And every child now that's born into this world will know that we're all one family living on this world. There's no separation, really. It's so easy to talk to someone in China or to go visit people. Yeah. So, and I never once heard that through 4 years or whatever it was of the Brexit. No one ever said that. We need both. We need autonomy in our local regions. We need unity across nations. But the power needs to be devolved back down to the local levels, and then we can elect representatives. If we need help from higher up, we can send a representative to ask for that help. But
I think that's the important.
Requests come from below, not from top down.
I think that's an important factor, is having the right people in the decision-making authorities. We've got people I'm no expert in politics. This is just my observation and my sort of candid opinion. The way I see it is we've got people in power making decisions who are not even the best of a bad bunch. They're just the ones we've seemed to have elected or whatever because there's no one else better to. And that's at top level and it's at local levels as well a lot of the time. And we need people who've got the right interests at heart, making decisions, who know what's happening at the grassroots level, who aren't far away in an ivory tower. I hate saying ivory tower because that's a very Daily Mail thing to say, isn't it? But they're far away. They've got a disconnect from the places that they're representing, and they've got a warped perception of it.
Yeah, they live in a completely different world.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. At least what's happening with Llandrindod. Seemingly there's a lot of stuff that affects Llandrindod, a lot of decisions being made about Llandrindod by people who aren't in Llandrindod, who don't know about it, and believe it's the same place that it was 30 years ago. That's the way I see it. You feel free to disagree.
No, I agree. There's that real disconnect, and again, because the power's coming from up high, and there's these huge pots of money and wealth, they are totally detached from the people on the ground level. It's got out of hand, really. And so for me, I want to open up democracy to people. Again, I think there's an opportunity now. The advent of this new modern age we live in, moving into the age of Aquarius. It's global community. It's about our sovereignty. It's about technology and the future. We're moving into a whole new age. It's a very difficult time of change at the moment. Everything's really difficult. It's like someone equated it to labour. When you're giving birth, it's a crazy, traumatic, dangerous time, and we're giving birth to a new way of us being on this planet together. The old ways are outdated now. The old structures that we use, the monetary systems run to its last, it's the last dying gasps of the fractional reserve monetary system. It's reached the end point where so much money is accumulated into the hands of so few, which was by design. It's become unsustainable now, and it's all breaking down. We need to think of new ways. And it's a very important time because at the moment we still do have free speech and we are able to communicate with each other across the world. But there are efforts to try and scupper that, to try and censor us from being able to talk together. Because the people that are sitting at these ivory towers are worried of them losing their power. But I'd say to them that actually maybe it's a good thing. Take all that stress away. Let's all share the responsibility out. We've got an opportunity now with the technology that we have. We could actually create a beautiful world for all the people. There's no reason why we should have homelessness or hunger, famine. We can do this. We can. No blaming and shaming was one of the phrases that was used when I was working for XR, so for a little, that's another little incarnation, Extinction Rebellion. Before my mother-in-law got ill and I had to step away from it. The big thing was like, no blaming and shaming. Yeah, let's just stop it now. Let's change the way that we live to make things more fair. So the monetary system's got way out of hand, as I say. We've seen the biggest transfer of wealth from the poorest to the richest in history over the last 4 years through COVID. The amount of quantitative easing that happened, so money printing to pay the furlough payments and everything, has just shot the debt to incredible levels. It was already unsustainable, and now it's just utterly, there's no way that the debt's ever going to be paid back. We need to rethink it, and there are certain fundamental things that we need in this world. So there's a guy, Dr. Ian McGilchrist. I recommend listening to his talk. He talks about the different hemispheres of the brain, the left and right hemispheres, and it's fascinating. I've been reading his book, and it's a very heavy read called The Master in His Emissary. But he talks about the fact that our brains are split into. So why is that? Our brains are all about making these connections in our minds. So why is there a huge divide down the middle of them? And looking back in history, 500 million years, the earliest tiny little creatures, where they've got samples, they can see that there's a split brain still, even at that time. So why is that? And it's asymmetrical as well. They're not equal. Everything else about us is symmetrical. The brains are. And his theory, through studying brain trauma people, so people that have had injuries or strokes over the year, he came to this conclusion that all the pop knowledge about left and right hemispheres in the past is a bit wrong, and that it was debunked. It was like poo-pooed ages ago that it was just false. But he's come up with a better one. So we have two forms of awareness. Every living creature needs to have two forms of attention in the world. The first one is a narrow beam. The left hemisphere is associated with a narrow beam focus about manipulating the world. The left hemisphere controls the right hand. The right hand is what we use to manipulate the world, use tools, affect change it. And it's all about a narrow beam of focus, the bird picking up the seed, hitting the hammer with the nail, going really deep into one specialist subject. The right hemisphere is the other form of attention that we need, awareness, which is the broader awareness, and making sure that we're not something else's dinner, and looking out for our kin, being conscious of the connection that we have with the environment, that we don't hurt that ecosystem because it will end up affecting us because we're all connected. So there's the left hemisphere, which sees everything as separate and breaks everything down, and essentially when we're in a new position and a new state, we're out in the wilds, in nature or whatever, we're very much in our right hemisphere is activated. They do scans on the brains. He's a real boffin, this guy. This is not quackery. He's a fellow of all these different universities. He's a psychiatrist. He's done studies on neurology, neuroscience and things. And so when we're in nature and we're in a new place, new environment, we're very much in the right hemisphere. It's for our present awareness, being present. Yeah. And so being in nature is really good for that. It brings us into our right hemisphere because it's a new environment and we're having to look out for danger and things like that. Once we get used to an environment, or we're used to people, it is then lodged into the left hemisphere and it's kind of stored there. So if you imagine the right hemisphere is like your RAM, and then your left hemisphere is like your hard drive. So once you get to know a place, a person, or a skill, it's all locked away and lodged into the left hemisphere, and then that becomes quite mechanistic then. So if we're living in the same way every day, in the same house, doing the same thing, getting on the same bus, seeing the same people, we're almost like inhabiting, living in our left hemisphere, and we're losing the use of the right hemisphere. And he says that the reason that the world is in the state that it's in now is because we've just gone, it's like really gone too far into the left hemisphere. We've lost our understanding of God, with that interconnectedness of everything, that science has decided, we're better than God. Oh, those silly, like ancient people, so, savages, or not savages, but idiots that still believe in God, The left hemisphere thinks it's better than the right hemisphere, and that's where we're going wrong. Yeah, we lost that understanding that everything that we do affects everything else as well, and that we're all connected. We're all one being, one consciousness. the essence of the true spiritual traditions. And I think there is a renaissance now coming back towards a more spiritual way of looking at things. There's the whole renaissance in good health, meditation, yoga, all these things that were all seen as a bit woo-woo 40 years ago, and now they're like mainstream things being prescribed on the NHS, like mindfulness practices and things like that.
True, yeah.
So there is a real renaissance. So he says that we need 3 things. This is what like made me fall in love with it and made me realise how important rainbow is to me and why I wanted to come on the talk to talk about rainbow. Because he said, what we really need and what we're lacking now, human beings, need to be in nature. Because if we're in nature, we're much more in our right hemisphere again. And we need the balance. We need both. We can't just live in our right hemisphere all the time, otherwise we're just sitting on a cushion and not doing anything and not doing the work. But also, we can't just be locked into our left hemisphere and think that we know it all and see ourselves as separate, see ourselves as isolated. You know, there's a lot of problems with isolation, loneliness in our world. It's a big part of it. You know, when you've lost that understanding that we're all one, that that faith and that trust that we're all connected and we're being looked after. Yes, sorry, I'm waffling.
It's all right. It's what it's about.
The first thing, we need to be in nature. The second thing, we need a really strong sense of community. And the third thing is we need to re-embrace the sacred. Those are the 3 things that. And when he said that, it just went, that's rainbow. We're in nature, we're holding hands, singing around a fire, we're cooking food for each other, real strong sense of community. And we're singing sacred songs around the fire, getting that feeling of like elation just from chanting and things like that. And so it just ticks all the boxes. So I want to start running rainbow gatherings here. I got back involved in it recently. I was up in the north of England helping Rainbow Circle out, helping them to run their gatherings, and I've set up a new group WhatsApp community here for setting up gatherings in Wales next year. So I see it as the cure. Yeah. And also, it's true democracy. So everyone's equal. You can choose to come to the council circles, and every day after breakfast we'll sit with a talking stick, and the stick goes around and no one's allowed to interrupt. We all are heard equally, even the quietest person. They might not say anything for a while, but eventually they speak up because they've got the opportunity to. The moment in the world that we live in, he who shouts the loudest gets heard the most, and the people that are quiet and aren't so confident maybe don't get a look in. And actually, through this mechanism of talking stick principles, which I'm trying to introduce to the council, it allows every voice to be heard equally, and it's non-hierarchical. You don't have to come, it's totally optional, voluntary, and or you can come and choose to be involved. It's the same with any work there, it's all voluntary. So in that council circle, we'll say, oh, the wood pile's getting a bit low, we need to go and get wood. Someone, can someone volunteer to do that? And undoubtedly, every time, someone will be like, yeah, cool. When it gets to them, I'll go and get wood. I'd love to go and do that. It's all out of volunteering. And then if someone comes to the point where they've had enough of being the wood vocaliser, they'll come to the circle and say, oh, I'm getting a bit tired of having to get all the wood. I'm stepping back from that now. I have to find someone else. And someone else will go, oh yeah, no, I'll do that. So I didn't realise you were getting fed up with it. Yeah, I'll be the wood vocaliser. So it's just this beautiful flow where no one feels like they have to be doing anything. They do it because they want to do it. They come to the council because they want to come to the council. If they need to rest and sleep and relax, they're allowed to do that, and no one's giving them a hard time. It's a whole new structure of how we can live together through openness, transparency, allowing people to get involved. And we have the other option. The other part of it is the magic hat. So it's all free. Anyone can come. It's meant to be totally inclusive. Like I said before, the food's vegan, so anyone can eat, and anyone can come along. They don't need to have money. And the hat goes around twice a day. We have breakfast and dinner, and we'll sing the Magic Hat song. Deep inside my heart, I got this. I could play the song, but yeah. The hat goes around, so there's no pressure. We're all sitting together having food anyway, and everyone sings the song. If you've got no money, come give us your love. And people put kisses in the hat if they haven't got any money. And so like, if you've got no love, come and dance with us. Like, cheer up, come and dance, put that love into your heart. And there's always enough money in the hat. there's always be someone that comes along just at the right time and chuck 100 quid in there or whatever, or people are putting their little bits, and there's an abundance. When enough people get there, we've got so much food because it's all vegan, and we go and buy from markets in bulk and things. It's like big boxes of potatoes and sacks and boxes of apples and things. It's super cheap. We've built everything ourselves. There's no bills. Like, generally, when I was involved, we were on public land, so common land, or National Trust as well. We got a good relationship going with the National Trust, so they didn't mind us using their land because we didn't have no alcohol. We'd always have the police come along. The landowner would come, and the police would come, and we'd say, right, we're only here for 28 days. It's just a family event, and they could just see kids and people. There's no alcohol, there's no drugs, there's no electronic devices, there's no loud music. We're literally just here gathering, celebrating life on the land. And so after that initial worry, they'd be like, oh, these guys are actually alright, and we're clearing up rubbish, and we're, I see it as a potential workforce where we could come and have a gathering, and we could build a polytunnel for someone, or we could turn over lands while we're there, because it's all voluntary, so it might not be loads of work done, but there's basically an army of volunteers that could do really good work. Although it worries people at first that, oh no, the travellers are moving again, and the whole place is going to get trashed. In fact, it's the opposite. We have this amazing, beautiful, spiritual experience where everyone's getting healthy and happy, drinking spring water. We focus everything around a spring, so the water is free and it's beautiful, fresh water from the spring. So you're drinking spring water, you're eating vegan food, you're dancing your feet barefoot on the earth. It's just got everything for healing that we need. I'm writing a book as well. I want to write a book. I am writing a book about the 4 elemental healing techniques that are free.
Hold that thought.
Yeah.
I need to get a new memory card for this camera.
Okay.
And
I'll
then
do part 2.
Yeah, see you in a moment. Yes. I'll leave that thing rolling.
See, I've got a lot to say.
Yeah.
I've got a hell of a lot to say. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
That's quite all right.
I hope you're finding it interesting. It's much of a nut job.
That's kind of what it's about, isn't it? Is embracing the nut jobs. Microphones are still on,
Brilliant.
Embrace the nut job. That's going to be the new tagline.
Well, I do definitely see myself, ironically, as a middle way.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
A partial nut job, or?
I might be seen as extremist in some ways, or radical. But for me, I just feel that I'm actually straight down the middle, really, that we need to find a balance between spirituality and hard work. None of the things I'm saying to me now just seem extreme at all. They just seem really common sense. And it's quite obvious what we need to be well and to be happy and healthy.
Well, I think
and we're not getting it at the moment. That's the problem.
Even on like a physiological level, just take the spirituality out of it. Yeah, think about what you need in life and what's good for your body.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what you're talking about. But then you're taking it that bit further, aren't you?
So we've come such a long way from our natural world. So how long have human beings been evolving on this planet? Like millions of years or so. And nowadays we are separated from nature. We're eating foods that aren't actually real foods a lot of the time. It's much worse in the States than it is here, but it's pretty bad here as well. All the additives and different pesticides and herbicides that we put on our foods. We're disconnected from our communities. We used to live in tribal cultures as well, where we used to know everyone quite closely, the people in our community, whereas nowadays a lot of people don't even know their neighbours, or their friends might be spread all over the place, and there's not that daily connection that we used to have with our community. But yeah, the main things, right, going back to my idea, the 4 elemental free healing techniques, which I'm patenting right here, is that I realised that breath work really helped me. So that's what helped me to really see things clearly in my mid-20s. I went to, say, Buddhist meditation practice, and it really helped calm me down. And then when I went on this retreat, I just couldn't believe it. I came out of it a changed person. It made everything fall into place. And the Buddha says that all knowledge, all wisdom can come from breath work, essentially. Just by sitting and breathing, certain breathwork exercises, immense amounts of wisdom come through. And I had real epiphanies. It was like, boom, sudden, incredible eureka moments, just because I was sitting still for 3 days and eating a plain diet and breathing. Amazing. So that's free. Anyone can do it anywhere, as long as you don't live on the moon or like under the sea. Anyone can sit and meditate for free, and it'll really help them to see clearly. Not only good for the physiological system, getting the oxygen into the blood. I do a lot of breath work these days rather than sitting meditation, which is what I was doing at the time, lots of just sitting. Now I do like deep breath work exercises, a guy breathing with Sandy on YouTube, which is excellent. I seriously recommend it. So yeah, incredible, free, and that's related to the element of air, obviously. Around the same time, I learnt about fasting, and I used to have real problems with my guts. Spent most of my early life drinking lemonade, eating biscuits, crisps, processed foods, beer, all these things, and I knew that I had something wrong in my colon. And sure enough, I was reading an article just recently that colon cancers in my age bracket are on the rise. So I think in my 20s I learned I'm ill, and luckily I'd learnt about fasting and breath work, and I was vegan and vegetarian for a while. And I just really cleaned up my diet. I practiced fasting once a week. Every Monday I just have a water fast, and every so often I do a longer fast, 3 days. The longest I ever did was like almost 5 days. That was pretty intense. But now my colon seems fine. I think, back then I saved myself. That might seem strange, but there is a lot of evidence to suggest that fasting is really good for us. Again, so you don't need any money to fast, as long as you've got a water source somewhere nearby. You don't live in the middle of a desert, you can water fast. So it's free, it's accessible to all, and it has incredible health benefits. That's air and water. Earth, all right, also around the same time, the grounding. We used to be connected to the earth all day, every day. It took us a long time to put plastic on the bottom of our shoes. Leather soles are good. They still absorb a bit of water. They still allow all of it. Essentially, we live in a positively charged atmosphere above us. The sun and all the cosmic rays, there's a lot of positive ions and things. And we absorb all that. And we're meant to be grounded to allow all of that to pass through us. You think everything in your world, electrical devices, are all earthed, aren't they? If you try plugging something like this in without an earth, it wouldn't work, or it would pretty quickly die, blow up. So we're missing that now. People aren't earthed. Just going out and spending a bit of time barefoot on the grass. Again, look at the scientific literature about it and the evidence about it. Maybe there's not a lot of it. There's some good films out there. There's a lot of good information for people to find out about it. So I practice that as much as possible.
It's a concept I'm familiar with. I don't do it quite so much now, but I used to, when I was out with the dogs, after work, I just spend a couple of minutes just kneeling down, hands on the floor, so grounding, as you say, let it all out.
Yeah, and again, free.
Exactly.
Accessible to all. Really, really good for our health.
Yeah.
So, those are the three that I'd worked out, and that's why I love saunas. I built a sauna in my back garden because I found that I'm a builder, wear big boots. I was just constantly in my steel toe cap boots all through the winter, and I wouldn't go out barefoot on the ground because I didn't want to get cold. A bit of a wimp. I was a bit of a wimp. I'm getting better. I'm doing cold therapies and stuff now. So I built a sauna in my back garden, which meant even in the snow, in the wind, in the rain, I'd get hot and then go out and stand or lie on the grass in the middle of the winter and get that bit of earthing. And I don't get ill. Everyone else has been ill so much, especially lately, this time of the year. I haven't been ill, right? And I don't often get ill, very, very rarely now. because I do these things. Yeah. So I realised that these were all related to elements anyway. I was grounding, I was fasting, I was meditating, breath work. So there must be one for fire as well. Air, earth, water, fire. What's the fire one? Oh, it must be getting lots of sunshine. But then I thought, well, according to the other three, that's not accessible for everyone. If you live in the northern climates in Scandinavia or whatever, you can't actually get sunlight all the time. So there must be something else to it, maybe, you know, well, unless we all should just go back and live in Africa or something. But then I learned about melatonin and light and dark cycles. So, you know, the circadian rhythms of light and dark. So when the sun's up, we get cortisol being created. The adrenal glands produce cortisol. It activates us, gives us energy. You know, if you want to wake up, get outside, look at the sun. Like, you know, if you've got your curtains closed, you stay groggy. So we've got to activate that cortisol less in the day. At night, when it goes to a red light spectrum, so, and I've heard recently candles and stuff don't do it, but, you know, I always thought that firelight and candlelight were good, but red lights basically at night. Then our pineal gland and other glands they're discovering produce a hormone called melatonin, and that's the sleep. It induces sleep and healing. Also heard it travels around. That hormone travels around. It's like immune system. It'll take, you know, kill off cancer cells or whatever like that. It does. I'm not sure exactly about the science of it, but essentially when it gets dark, if we go into a dark room like that after a few moments, like I don't know how long, that cortisol stops being produced in the adrenals, we start producing melatonin, and it's all about healing. So these days, what do?
On the phone.
We have on our phone at night.
Yeah.
We have the lights on in the winter. It gets dark at 4, so turn on the lights. Turn on the strip lights. You know, the circadian rhythm is all about the fact that in the summer we had a lot more cortisol and we were a lot more active, and then in the winter we have a lot more sleep and a lot more rest. And we used to have those cycles of activity and rest. But nowadays we just work, especially because of the problems with our economy. The fact that we're paying so much interest on debt because of the runaway fractional reserve system, where most of the tax we're paying is probably going on funding the interest on the debts to the bankers and things like that. So we can't stop working, we can't hibernate, we can't have that rest, we got to keep working, we got to keep going. That's like, no wonder people are getting ill so much, because they're lacking all of these things. Yeah, people are stressed, let alone sitting in meditation. People are stressed because of the pressures on the world, and it's getting worse. You know, our children these days are all being fed with the whole crisis of our climate, and so there's climate anxiety issues even in our youngest. They're not having to worry about the bills yet and all the other strains that we have on our world. So, and I had someone say to me yesterday, "Oh, like, come on, don't do it as free. You got to make some money out of this. You know, like, you have to survive in this world." And that's not what I'm about. Unfortunately, I struggle financially. I want to set up a Patreon so that I can start documenting all of these things that I'm trying to do with my music, with the council, with I want to set up a community gardens project and get funding through for setting up allotment spaces and community gardens in our town and other towns potentially. There's funding streams through the Welsh Assembly. I was at the Senedd the other week as a councillor, and it was really inspiring. Other communities around Wales have applied for grant funding to be able to buy a big parcel of land and set it up for community growing and have it as an amenity space for people to work, rest, to play together, create food, have an opportunity to be out in nature. So it was brilliant to see that. I've just joined the council, and there just happened to be this opportunity to go to the Senedd to talk about our sensory garden that's been put in opposite the Glen Usk Hotel in the centre of town. So although I wasn't involved in the creation of that project, as soon as I heard that it was local places for nature scheme, I was like, well, I don't know anything about it, but I want to go. And I ended up going to the Senedd and meeting members of the Senedd and talking to them about it and stuff, which was really cool. But yeah, so going back to it, like I for years I've realised that we're so locked into having to chase the money all the time that we're not able to do the work in our communities.
Absolutely right.
And that's why I left my job and I became a community volunteer, and I sofa surfed and I lived in a bender, and just so that I could do the work and not have to just focus about paying the bills all the time. Sometimes backfires. I've now got a family of 5, and we have had times where it's been really stressful because we haven't had enough money, and I hate having to ask people for money or borrowing money or whatever. But even as a kid, I remember thinking, if I could just ask everybody to send me 10p, everyone in the country, write a letter to everyone, say, can you just send me 10p and I'll do some really good stuff with the money. I'll set up some community project, and it's like begging, I guess. But at the end of the day, I want to see a complete shift in the world where money is not the focus, that care in the community is the focus, that health is the focus, that looking after our environment is the focus. Because at the moment, the way we're going, we're destroying the planet in the name, for capitalist reasons. The fact that we can just print off money willy-nilly allows businesses to go and build the mine there and they don't have to make the money first before they can build the new mine. They can get the money printed, they can go and annihilate the planet and then reap the rewards and pay back the interest. And the bankers are winning, but the planet isn't, and we aren't. We're getting ourselves into a right muddle. So can I sing you a song?
I was going to say, on that note, get the old guitar out and show us what you got.
So I'm going to play you my more more chill one first.
Yeah, it's alright if I join in.
Yeah, please do. Although, I should. With all that talk that I was just speaking about then, I'm going to play you Unite with Love.
Okay.
So my email is unitewithlove@gmail.com. I managed to get in there early. I don't know if anyone else would have ever chosen that, but I'm quite proud of it anyway. I like it. And this song is called Unite with Love.
Yeah.
Tails, slaving away just to survive another day. The mass is being used for sacred Goya is abused, filling the coffers with the few so you can have your Nike shoes. Our property is theft, that's the interest on the debt, the few don't get it all, but we're all still left bereft. We're the ones in prison by their lawless usury. Just open up your eyes to see the inequality. So what if I told you things don't have to be this way? What if I told you that your heart is the key? What if I told you that love is the way? I've come to tell you that you're already free. In a world of information, you must read between the lines. Please don't pamper yourself with their unnecessary lies. They've isolated, separated, played us for so long. Disunited, they know we did come on too strong. Oh, love is the law, there's nothing more. Whoa, 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 oh, love is the law. Whoa. Are there flaws in their laws resonating with your heart and soul? See the justness of your own justice and make truth your goal. Stand up to this oppression and teach Babylon a lesson. Conquer your fears and liberate your heart. Don't be afraid to speak from the heart. They may try to say you're crazy, give your Prozac, shut you up. But what would you do if I tell you that you're free to live as you like, to do as you please? Oh, now I told you things don't have to be this way. Now that you know that's in your heart is the key. Now that we know truly love is the way, we feel job beauty everywhere we play. Oh, love is the law, there's nothing more. Oh, 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 love is the law. Oh, oh, love for the father, and love for the mother, and love for your sister. earth will bring new heaven to this earth. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, 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 oh. I'll ride the tide and walk the sea, and love I see what comes for free. I'll show my friends what I am worth. I'll live for heaven here on earth.
Nice.
Yay! I just thought that seemed totally apt after that little
Yeah.
rant I had.
No, that's good, man. I enjoyed that. That was good fun. It's
What do you
remind me
like?
of
You like with love.
remind me of this. Is it Cinematic Orchestra? No, not them. Where is it? No, it'll come to me at some point. I'll tell you off the air. But no, there's a band that has a vocalist almost identical to yours. I enjoy it. so well done. No, that's good. And you write that yourself. You wrote that
That's
yourself.
one of mine, yeah.
Yeah, man, that's cool.
My signature track, really.
Yeah.
And I wrote it so many years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I've not done anything with it.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember people saying at the time that they really loved it. And
Yeah.
I played it a lot. Like when I was at Rainbow, I was like the musician. I played every day, all day. There was all this opportunity for singing. Because we had no electronic devices there, you have to make your own entertainment.
Mm.
It's a really good place where lots of people learn to sing, because we sing all the time.
Yeah.
And play instruments, because there's a lot of time on their hands and people want music. So, you know, it's such a beautiful environment for just getting back to who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Feel humanity's lost touch of what it is to be a human being. And that can change. It can.
It's hard, isn't it? Because culturally we're so ingrained and bought in and locked in to the lifestyles that we currently have, whether we like it or not. You know, whether even if we wanted to cut ourselves off and go and live off grid,
It's really hard.
they'd so clobber us with some sort of a tax or say, well, actually, no, you can't do that, and here's a myriad of laws why, and here's a lot of taxes you have to pay, and all that sort of thing. The odds are stacked up against us, aren't they?
And like people want to be able to grow food. For years, I would have loved just a little plot of land to be able to get a polytunnel up and grow some food locally. And it's really hard, you can't afford it, don't have the time to do it. I used to dedicate quite a lot of my time for growing food in our garden and educating our kids. So we forego any holidays, having any money, being able to buy new clothes, everything would come from the charity shops and things. And we'd spend all our money on organic food because, again, I buy organic as much as I possibly can. Obviously, I can't always, but wherever possible, I will, because we can vote with our wallets every day. So that's like
true.
a vote. I vote to support organic farming because it's looking after our soil. It's better for my family. There's more nutrition. The depletion of our soils is a real crisis. And again, there's like a renaissance going on now. People are aware now of the importance of the microbiome in our soils. For so many years after the World War, we came up with these incredible ways of producing huge amounts of food for cheap. Food pyramid, whatever we called it, where they started just producing huge amounts of grains and things to be able to feed the population, get us all on bread. And then we had the GM engineering of wheat to be able to increase the yields, so they're no longer the natural. We're all eating genetically modified breads, wheat from the 60s, when they managed to find a really clever way of changing the breed to get a high yield. Unfortunately, the byproduct of that was much higher gluten, which is a sugar essentially in breads. And you hear a lot now about people having gluten intolerances and things, and because we're not used to having this much gluten in our diets naturally. Also, there's a lot of talk about glyphosate, the fact that they changed the procedures. So they used to just put the glyphosate, which is like a weed killer, onto our crops at the beginning of their cycle when they were young. They'd spray them to stop any pests coming and attacking them, and then they would harvest as usual. But I can't remember what it was, 90s something. They learned that by spraying glyphosates on the crops just before harvest, it helped to desiccate it. So they were much less prone to rotting and things like that. So that's been a practice they've been doing for quite a long time now, where they're literally spraying this horrendous death chemical all over the wheat just before it's harvested and then processed. And they do think a lot of these gluten issues are actually down to that. There's a lot of evidence coming out about it. You mentioned before, that just sprung to mind, that the politicians in power at the moment don't seem to have anything related to the people on the ground. So, have you heard of corporate capture?
No.
Okay, so there are more lobbyists in the United States Congress, people lobbying congressmen, than there are congressmen. There's like 4 lobbyists for every congressman for big business. So whether that's big pharma, big agriculture, it's the same over here. If they can manage to bribe or give a handout to the right person in the right place, they're going to get the best deal for their company. Essentially corporate capture. So our politicians, our legislators, they're targeted by big corps. So they're actually acting on their behalf. They're not, or at least in some capacity, they are acting on the behalf of the people that are giving them the money. That might be more true with like the Conservative government. It might be the same across the board. But that's where we're going wrong. That the people in power should be representing us more than anything. There shouldn't be allowed to be this revolving doors as well, where people are regulating an industry and then suddenly they're being paid as a consultant for that very industry, or back again, vice versa. You know what I mean? It's highly suspicious, and that shouldn't be allowed. And we shouldn't allow any corporate donations to political parties. That should just be stopped. You know, it should all be funded by the taxpayer, and then they're working on our behalf. We need to change the laws in that respect, so that it's truly representative of the people.
How do we do that?
Well, this is it. I mean, talking about it, you know, and looking at that, seeing if we can implement law, lobbying our local members of parliament, members of the Senate, talking about it. So these are all things that this is it. How do we do it? And the first thing is to get together within our local communities and talk about these issues. There's so much distraction going on. There's so many things. I don't watch telly, drama series, or anything like that. You know, I find that my time is better spent watching podcasts. I love podcasts. I used to read the Independent newspaper and watch the news. But it's just, oh God, it's like so boring these days. I can smell BS.
Absolutely. And that's the beautiful thing about a podcast. Hashtag VIPinMyShed. Because it is unbiased, isn't it? Anyone can make one.
And it's a long
Any old
conversation.
Sorry?
It's a long form conversation. It's not just little sound bites that can be, you know, you really get to know someone on a deeper level with a long form conversation like this. Whereas little pitches on for 5 seconds, 30 seconds on the news.
You don't get the big picture, do you?
You're not really getting to know that person that's putting forward these policies or whatever at a deeper level. So this is a revolution. The fact that we can, I love just listening to interesting people. It's almost like I go to Stanford University some days, or I go to Oxford University other days, because I can hear these really prominent physicians, like academics, doctors, politicians. Whereas that was never there before for us. At least it was only for the elites. And now we all have access to this information. It's great information. Obviously there's still a lot of misinformation out there. But it, you know, as I say, it's just so obvious a lot of the time when there's ulterior motives. And it's doing the very opposite. Like, information's coming out that's just like, no, that's wrong. Why are you telling people that? Or, you know, it just breaks my heart that we seem to be going in the wrong direction still with so many things. But I say, no, there's a balance in the universe, isn't there? You've got the yin and the yang, you've got the light and the dark, and right now things are really dark. Yeah, for a lot of people. You look at the war in the world, the climate, the state of our ecology, I would say. You know, I wouldn't say I'm too worried about carbon dioxide, because we're carbon-based life forms, and every other life form on this planet pretty much is carbon-based. We need carbon but we don't want toxic forever chemicals in our. We don't want herbicides and pesticides in our food. We don't want all this pollution in our air that's killing our trees. So Phytophthora larch is a disease that's killing our larch trees. You've got ash dieback that's killing ash, and that's never happened before. Suddenly, there's obviously a change going on, whether or not that is temperature change or it's just pollutants in our environment. So it's not carbon I'm worried about, it's all the other crap that they're putting into our environment that we need to worry about. So
I think carbon affects the stuff that we depend on. It doesn't directly affect us, does it? But it affects the ecosystem that we live in.
We could all go out and plant trees tomorrow.
Oh yeah, then
soak up all the carbon. We could protect our beet bogs.
Yeah.
And renew our peat bogs, our wetlands, and plant trees. That could be a concerted global effort, and we'd have the carbon dioxide down again. I do feel that there's ways out of it if we could just get our stuff together and do it. But it's all the other things that aren't spoken about, really, or they're beginning to be spoken about. Again, it seems like a lot of the money that's going into this carbon credit systems and things, it's just like billions of pounds going to massive multinational corporations. And what we need to do is put billions of pounds into our local economies and invest in the community gardens and the health and well-being infrastructure, community infrastructure like youth centres and community centres and things to deal with the isolation, the lack, the feeling of disconnection that people have. We've got this ever-burgeoning NHS budget. So one of the meetings I went to recently, we're talking about the fact that, I asked a question really, the health board were there and the county councillors were there, and they were talking about there's a bit of a crisis going on with funding, and they're talking about shutting down leisure centres and things in this area because they can't afford to upkeep them. And the NHS bill has been getting so high that we're having to cut all these services like leisure centres, and it's like, wait a minute.
There's a disconnect there, isn't there?
Yeah, like surely we should be putting more money into the leisure centres, and then we can bring down the NHS budget. But it's only going to make things worse. And I did put that question to them.
And what did they say to that?
I don't think there was much of a response as such, but I did have feedback from people saying that was a really good question. 440 million we're spending in Powys on health care, and 100 million goes into social care. So there should be a certain. We need to start going back the other way, and we certainly shouldn't be closing our leisure centres.
No, agreed.
Should be creating more opportunities for people to be together and be healthy. And relax. That's like my point was saying. We're all pretty stressed. There's a lot of darkness in the world at the moment, but we've got to remember that there's a yin and the yang. So just as it's getting a lot darker, it's getting a lot lighter on the other side. Like we're talking about the renaissance in health and well-being. There's a lot of information coming out through podcasts, and our ability to communicate with each other on this global level that's really helping to empower people, to inform people more than they've ever been before, to be able to see through the propaganda, to be able to see a bit of propaganda and then look at another source and go, oh, that doesn't match up, that doesn't marry up, does it? And does that person have a reason to lie about it? How are they benefiting? Does that person have a reason to lie about it? And it's quite often you can see, that person has got money involved in that and ulterior motives, whereas that person has destroyed their career because they've spoken out about something.
Yes.
Which one do you trust?
Yes.
It's a no-brainer, isn't it?
Absolutely.
The amount of censorship that we've seen over the last 4 years, it's horrendous, and they've admitted it. The powers that be. So, but at the end of the day, to say I want to speak out about these things, but I don't want to make any enemies for myself, because we're all one family, and I feel like that is possible. I can love everybody, even the people that are really causing harm at the moment to people and planet. I'm ready to forgive. Just stop what you're doing. Give us the opportunity to do things in a different way, and we'll all be better off, even those people. I don't know how they can sleep at night, some people, and maybe they don't. Maybe they're on a whole load of sleeping tablets and are really stressed, or maybe not. Maybe they just sleep like babies. But I can't see that. I can't see how that would be the case if you're in a position where you are really responsible for a lot of suffering in the world. I can't see how people would be happy with that. So there's an opportunity to forgive, forget, move on. That's what we need to do, I think. Instead of digging deeper and like to try and cover your backs to stop anything coming out and to stop being found out, just like fess up and say, all right, I've had enough. I don't want to do this anymore either. That's my plea.
Yeah.
To anyone else
Is that what you'd like to round off this podcast with, do you think?
It sounds like an appropriate time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Although I'd like to sing one more song.
Absolutely, I was hoping you would. Yeah, go for it.
This is called Just Be.
Just Be.
Just be, just be, just be, oh. Good to one another, yeah. Just be, just be, just be, oh. Just be good to one another, 'cause we are friends forever. Just be good to one another, 'cause we are friends forever. Just be good to one another, 'cause we are friends forever. Just be good to one another, 'cause there ain't no time to be feeling anything fine. There ain't no time for all this fussing and fighting, no. This fussing and fighting, no. You know they say you don't know what you got till it's gone. So why don't you wake up and appreciate all the love that surrounds you. Wake up and be strong. Wake up and be kind. Wake up and sing this song, 'cause you know everything's gonna be alright. Oh, 'cause we are friends forever. Just be good to one another, 'cause there ain't no time to be feeling anything but fine. There ain't no time for all this fussing and fighting, no. This fussing and fighting, no. 'Cause everybody wanna be happy, and everybody got it tough. It ain't easy being lonely when your life is out to luck. So you got to remember that we are all one unity. Well, come save me. You got to have some compassion. Got to have compassion for your enemies, yeah. 'Cause then you realize you have none. Got to have compassion for your enemies, yeah. 'Cause then you realize you have none. Just be, just be, just be, whoa. Good to one another, yeah. Just be, just be, just be, whoa. Why, yeah. Just be, just be, just be, whoa. Good to one another, yeah. Good to one another, yeah. Why, yeah. Good to one another, yeah. Good to one another, yeah.
Very nice. Good message.
Thanks, bro. And it seems to tie in really well with what I was just speaking about, hasn't it? That was good, I like that.
Absolutely, yeah. Who would have thought?
It's like doing a gig where you do a little bit of talking and a lot more music. This one's the other way around. Lots of talking and
Yeah.
good music.
Yeah, well, I like it. It's going back to the roots of what I wanted for this podcast. Is a bit of going with the flow, not just conversation, but a bit of music as well. And see what happens, really. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
It's been cool to get back in here and record again.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, no worries. And I think it's a good message that you've got. And I look forward to seeing the influence that you have on the town manifesting itself in a good way. Yeah, watch this space, I think, isn't it? My camera's died again. I've gone through 2 memory cards on that. It seems to be limited to half an hour for some reason. But anyway, that one's died, so I'm going to steal yours. So, there we are, folks. That's it. How's that looking? Whoops. Is it died still?
That's right, I think.
Bugger. Hang on a minute. I'm just going to do this. There we are. Hang on. Sort my hair out. Sort my hair out. Okay, there we are. Sorted my hair out, everyone. So there we are. Time to wrap up the podcast. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I suppose I better do the sort of the promotional part. So like, subscribe, follow, share, all that good stuff. Let people know about this podcast. And you can catch it on Spotify and YouTube now as well. So if you haven't got a Spotify account, you can watch it all on there. Hooray and hurrah. So once again, thank you, Blue.
That's love.
The man himself. And catch you on the next one. Cheers, everyone.